Shalom, shalom, family. Welcome once again to the Uzziel Lewi channel. With me today, myself. Give me 1 second here, brother. Mute your microphone real quick. All right. As you can see in the descriptions and in the title, I have a very special guest with me today. And I know some of you might be saying to yourselves, so why is Brother Uzziel interviewing this person right here? Why is he on the Google Hangout with none other than Brother Polight? I am Brother Polight, as his YouTube channel will say. For many years I've been studying this way of life for over 30 years, since I was 13 years old. I'm now 43, and you get to a point in your life where you kind of get out of your box a little, and you begin to do things that you're not used to doing, or things that make you feel so comfortable. And I think that this interview right now will be one of those type of moments, because I know there's been a lot of contention between Brother Polight and the Hebrew community. So you would say to yourself, why is Brother Uzziel doing this? And I'm doing this because I would like to get to know Brother Polight on a different level. I know that he had contention with our community, but I would like to know Brother Polight on a level like we get to know the people that I interview on my channel, rather than the contention, because that's easy to do. Get to know the man for what he is, what's his origins, where he came from, and do an interview style that I don't think has ever been done with him before. Maybe we get to know a little bit more about the man and his understanding and where he's coming from and the things that have affected him growing up. And I believe that will be a productive interview, rather than Brother Polight and Zion Lex, or Brother Polight and Brother Tazari are going at each other. Now you have a Hebrew interviewing Brother Polight and having a discussion that's not contentious. So I'm going to bring the brother in and let him introduce himself to the community for those that might not know him. I don't think that many people don't know him, but let's see with the brother right here. Let me try to unmute his microphone. And actually, I think you might have to unmute your own microphone, Brother Polight. Because I'm trying to do it and it's not allowing me over here. There you go.
Okay, I think.
There you go. Just introduce yourself to the community, my brother, and let people for those that might not know you and know who you are, just give a brief introduction of yourself to the community.
Okay. Peace to the family. I'd like to thank you, my brother, for having me on your platform. I'm Brother Polight, known as head of the Crown Illustrious Supreme Grand Apple Section of our New Covenant community. My spiritual/cultural appellation being the Sut Amun-Re Senatumre, and a lot of my peers affectionately revere me as Brother Polight. Polight being the acronym for pride, optimism, love, integrity, gallant, honesty, and trust. And I'm here to converse with you and speak to you about whatever you want to talk about. And okay. I want to give thanks to my good Hebrew brothers and sisters for not burning the bridge and keeping the connection strong, so we can have opportunities to build, as we've created a number of opportunities to destroy. And destruction not necessarily being a bad thing. There's time for it, but we definitely have to appropriate more time towards construction after the destruction. So I'd like to thank you for this opportunity, my brother.
That sounds good. I see you're driving, so I just want you to be careful first and foremost. I think that sometimes...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes within the community, I think greater than everything, besides, our beliefs and what we feel, that we have one common factor, that we're all black. And at the end of
No
the
doubt.
day, when we stand on the corner, that enemy is not going to look at us and be like, that's a Nubian, that's a, that's a Kemetic teacher, that's a Hebrew, that's a Christian, that's a Muslim. They're going to say, just look at them N-words over there. And the only reason why I'm not saying the word is because, YouTube have all these different things now that they doing, and they trying to shut people down. So we going to keep it civilized. So,
No doubt.
so, Brother Polight, so can you give us a little bit about your beginnings, where you're from, and where you were born?
I'm from Brooklyn. I was born in Brooklyn, New
Right.
York, and my father raised me for the most part, though he left by the time I was about 8 years old, actually on my birthday. And my mother, I met her when I turned 17. She died the week that I met her. My grandmother took care of me for the most part, which is my father's mother, until which time she wound up losing the home that we was living in, and she wound up in a nursing home in the latter stages, which had me homeless. And I learned a lot from my good brothers from the streets. They pretty much raised me for the most part. And after being in juvenile detention and graduating to Rikers Island, in the interim, I was always seeking knowledge somewhere. I dropped out of school 10th grade and found myself when my wife just got tired of me being in and out of prison and in the system. And she said, read or leave. She gave me a ultimatum. And she said she would work two jobs, give me one of the checks, provided all I do is stop hustling and just sit in there and read and study. And I'm like, exactly, I'm supposed to read and study. You don't read and study yourself. She said, well, last time you was locked up, I was going around, I was asking a lot of good brothers and sisters what are some good books to read. And she said, every check, I was buying another book or two. And so she said, I have all these books here for you to read. And so I called a bluff because at that time, my wife, Aminette, I used to look at her like, I used to look at Aminette like she was a big ghetto. And I'm like, she's not going to do something so righteous. Like, I loved her. I was attracted to her and everything. But I'm like, she ain't this
Like
type
she
of
gonna
woman. You want
burn
me
me.
to
She
read?
gonna burn me somewhere down the line, right?
Facts. I'm like, you're going to work two jobs and you ain't going to complain about it. You're going to give me one of your checks every week. And you're going to allow yourself to work two jobs
Right.
to the sweat of the brow, expend all that energy, and you're going to wait for an indefinite time because she said she believed that I was wasting my potential. And with my guidance, she believed that I can help us both transcend the depths of poverty and be able to move forward together as a unit for a better life. If I just read, she said, I met her doing her homework. That's how we met when we was real young, 12, 13 years old.
Right.
She challenged me to do her homework because she's like, you can't do it. And I said, yes, I can. She said, how you in elementary school and cutting and hanging out in the streets? You can't do none of this work. You don't understand it. And so I did her homework. She went to school and it checked out. So after that, she kept coming by my house before she goes to her house. But we live across the street. And next thing you
Right.
know, I'm here bragging that I could do her homework. I didn't realize she was using me. You know what I'm saying? I'm doing her homework. So that's how I met her. And then as
Right.
we got older, she gave me that ultimatum. She's like, hey, you was always smart. And, she said, I got confidence in myself, but I really believe with your vision and your guidance, we could take things to another level one day. So I'm going to with you, and my return is going to be a better life with you. So I'm going to work this job every day. She said, I did a lot of thinking the last time you got locked up, and I'd be wrong to sit here while you hustle and just be your girlfriend until you die or get arrested. And so I took up on the offer. 6 months time, I found myself for the most part started making soap, lotion, deodorant, hair grease, body spray.
Right.
I came out with my own independent publication, newspaper, 8 pages long, I think, or 12 pages thick. Sold it for $1 and sold it on the train. Told my wife how to sell it, my other wives in time,
Right.
and opened up a bookstore. One bookstore led to two, two led to three, three led to four. I wound up getting locked up one more time again out of anger and for another situation. I actually was building with Zion about it before this conversation not too long ago, interested enough. And when I came home, Dr. York's older brother, Imam Baba Oyo, gave me a place to stay, gave me a whole building, rent with option to buy. So I became a landlord when I came home. And Dr. Savy, when I came home, he gave me 15 grand to contribute and start up my Outline and Alkaline restaurant, and another 5 grand to just put in my pocket. So I skipped quite a bit, but I have quite the story. So
Right.
that's my beginnings. I got on my path and started doing my thing. Of course, by that time, I already got healed by Dr. Savy because I had diabetes, I had gangrene that was gonna cut my foot off. So I got blessed to have been cured before that situation where I got locked up. Otherwise, I would have had gangrene and a black foot that was dying while in jail, which I definitely would have had to cut that being in the prison system because they wasn't going to be letting no herbs go in the system. So I was blessed at the sequence of events. No matter how bad things were, I was always blessed. And I got the vision and clairvoyance and intuition to know enough that I was blessed. No matter how bad things seemed or turned out with the lack of mother, father, and everything, I may not have arrived to be the man that I am today for my family. So I have no regrets.
So do you have like I think I heard somewhere before where they said like you have a Panamanian background. Is that true?
Yeah, my father's father is Panamanian. My
Okay.
grandfather, he's Panamanian. On my other side, they Bajan, and then I did the DNA test. Over 75% said Nigerian, and I
Right.
actually found some family that lives out there. That's Igbo.
Okay. Yeah, because I was born in Panama.
Oh wow, that's what's up.
Funny enough, I was
That's
born in
what's up.
Cologne, and your grandfather is probably from Cologne too, because that's where most of the
Yeah,
people
yeah,
went to work,
yeah. That's where he's from.
from Cologne.
That's
Yes.
interesting.
Yeah, that's interesting. And that's a whole history in itself. So that's something we could go into. We could talk about for days to come, because there's a Bajan and Panamanian connection also. The major people that they brought to build the canal when the French couldn't do it and the indigenous people were dying out were actually the people from Barbados. You know, they brought those. That's the
Yeah.
main people they brought there. The Americans brought there to
Prepare to
build that
keep
canal
left
when they took
onto
over.
I-15
So
southbound
that's
after 2
interesting in itself.
miles.
So what do you feel was the effects of not having a father? Because I know that in the black community we have a lot of that. You know, not having a father. Not What do you think are the effects of not having a father in the home? More so, you know, I mean, you need a mother, but in our communities it seemed like we we don't have a father, you know, and how do you think that affects us as young men, especially?
I think it affects us dramatically, especially when it's become normalized. And case in point, I just had a monologue the other day on my Facebook where I asked the people, when I say strong black woman, what comes to mind? And ultimately, what came to mind was a single mother. And I said, it's very interesting that we don't identify the woman who still has a man as a strong black woman. It's like the single mother has cornered the
In half
market
a
on
mile,
being,
keep left onto
okay,
I
I-15
know your
southbound.
GPS. You driving, so
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
It's like this. It's like the single mother has cornered the market on being a strong black woman. And there's nothing wrong with considering a single mother as a strong black woman, but
Right.
there's
Keep
something
left onto
wrong
I-15
with not even
southbound.
considering a woman who still is with her man as a strong woman. And I think
Right.
it would be, we should give her more credit for doing what it takes to perpetuate such a scenario where she may have to stay with that man for the sake of not just their commitments to each other, but also for the children, and likewise for the man. So I thought it was very interesting that when we say strong black woman, a woman in a relationship did not come to mind. And
Right.
so the missing father has been normalized. Okay, the missing father has been normalized, and the byproduct is effeminate behavior from the young men quite often when they're missing their father. It's hard to talk to them without them becoming very irrational. And they're women, so to speak, with a male body. So the temperament is feminine, and there's nothing wrong with a feminine temperament if you're a female. So I don't want women to think I'm speaking condescending about them. There's nothing wrong for a woman acting as a woman. There's something wrong for a man acting as a woman. All right? No different from a woman acting as a man.
Right.
Because the adverse effect of it is if you have a lot of single mothers out there raising their children, particularly sons, then the mother's forced to become very masculine to appropriate that type of energies to discipline her child. And now she may find herself attempting to discipline her husband, playing the role of a father for so long. Her energy may be so masculine that when she interfaces with the male counterpart, she doesn't know how to get out of that space where she's been behaving as a father, but a lack of one thereof. And so this whole thing creates disharmony in the community because no man really wants to, I would hope, no man wants to be with a woman who behaves as a man.
Right.
No more than no woman wants to behave or interface with a man who has a female temperament. And so the lack of a father in the community has created a situation that has caused the young brothers to want to kill and shoot because they're in conflict with being the warrior hunter-gatherer as well as being afflicted by the emotions of a female, not the emotions of a man. So we all have male and female principles, but it's misappropriated when you don't have both man and father in the household, or at least a male mentor available to that young man. Because if a man is yelled at, ridiculed, and screamed on by the woman in the house with no male appropriation, that can go any of a number of ways. And what I mean by that is, me having only daughters, the rule in the house is I will not raise my voice at my daughters. And why? Because I don't want them to grow old and complacent with a man yelling at her. I don't want that to become normal. Now, the mother on the other end, she could do that. Now, say we have a son. She can't get in my way when I'm disciplining him as a man should. But I don't expect her to behave as a man to discipline my son. I'm here for that. So she can be there to embrace him and hug him and everything after the war, after the dust cloud, because I may have to seriously discipline him.
Right.
And he needs to be able to appreciate what mom has to offer in the advent of discipline. Doesn't mean she can't discipline him either. But when it needs to be aggressive, she needs to let me do that. And we need to put these things into perspective. And just like with my daughters, if it's something going on and I really feel like, oh man, we're gonna have to level up, I'm gonna talk to the mothers and I'm gonna say, you got to deal with that. Now, it doesn't mean we're playing good cop, bad cop, but I know how aggressive I can be, and I don't want to deal with my daughters like that. You feel what I'm saying? So I'm gonna let them know when they're wrong, and there's ways for me to deal with it as a man, but I don't want to overstep their boundaries and they misconstrue what daddy gives them for what their boyfriend in the future should give them. You feel me? Because a lot of times our children are going to pick people that's reminiscent to that of their parents.
Right.
And because we're going to pick, my children are going to pick a man with attributes similar to me, the father, and our sons will pick people that are similar to the women that they grew up in the household with. We got to be very careful the way we choose to discipline. So I don't want, like my sons to be, I wouldn't want my sons to be conditioned to be yelled at by any of the women in the house. I don't want my son used to being yelled at by a woman.
Right.
I don't want it. I can't tolerate it and I won't accept it. I don't like it. And to keep it equal, I won't yell at my daughters. How about that? So the women can get it in with the females, man can get it in with the young men, and we can establish that camaraderie because ultimately, can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you clear. I'm listening.
Okay, because somebody called me. When somebody calls me, he gets a little low. So ultimately, what I'm saying is the male harmonics and the female harmonics will always be intact after the discipline. but
Right.
something changes when it's the opposite gender. So I'm careful. So if I have to get it in with my son, he's gonna understand that that's how men do. We're gonna play sports. We're gonna box. We're gonna be rough. I'm gonna
Right.
talk aggressive to him, but he can't be so soft that he wanna cry after I talk hard to him. You
Right.
feel me?
Right.
Like
Right.
he can't, and I don't think that's for a woman to do to a man. I
Right.
don't think that edifies a young man properly to have a woman yelling and screaming at him, smacking him up and back his head. I don't want him to misunderstand what his relationship is to the opposite sex when he gets older.
Right.
So I don't want to see a woman doing that to a man. I think it's degrading, and I think it's confusing. Now I, as a man, want to grab my son up and say, "Yo, get over here. Let me talk to you, man." That's man to man. You feel what I'm saying?
I feel
And
you.
he gonna understand that that's a form of love, because I don't want him to be soft in today's society, because they always working hard against the black man. So I gotta prepare him for the world that he's gonna be in as a black man, where women may even attempt to black men. If he's willing to do things that he wouldn't normally do, if he's willing, like let's say he's God, right? She may want to see if she could take God's spot.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying? So he gotta be about his discipline. He can't be more about her if he say he really about his creator. You
We having a little difficulty. It might be Brother Polight might be going through a little rough spot, so let
yeah.
us what. Go ahead, Brother Polight. You was going through a little
Okay.
rough spot, so we didn't hear
No
about
problem.
the last minute of
Uh,
what you said.
I got you. You can hear me clearly now?
I can hear you clear now.
Yeah, so ultimately, I'm with women that I entrust with the vision that we share,
Right.
which is why on another subject, I wouldn't suggest anything over with the opposite sex that has an opposing spiritual worldview, because we're not going to swap or
Right.
take turns with our worldview when it comes to raising our children. I'm not about to be in that conflict.
Right.
You feel me? So
Right.
that's another thing. But don't build about that forever. But yeah, we need the black man and woman.
No
Hold on real
problem. No
quick.
problem.
Hold on real quick. Decide to have a person. Hold on real quick.
All right. So we have Brother Polight. He was getting in depth with some of his ideologies and his philosophy on how you should raise a child and how he feels that it should go, or how he will raise or run his household, and how he feels that it should go, as far as man and woman, the dynamics of the children, whether it's a male or a female, child, and how they should be disciplined and how they shouldn't be. A lot of information. I know that this interview is gonna, because Brother Polight is very eloquent, and he's gonna be able to fill that time, just with his with his ideology and the things that he feels. So I'm gonna try to move it along and get to the questions that I have for him. But he's definitely doing a great job to begin. And I believe that dynamic of the father not being in the homes, that affects, like you said, it made a lot of young black male effeminate with the emotions, and if you don't have a strong male figure around, or someone that could point you in the right direction, it definitely will affect you as a man. It will affect you as a child growing up. These are all the different things. All right. So these are the things. So so let's see what's going on here. Let's wait till the brother comes back on, and we'll continue with that interview. I might need to have him call in. Maybe that'll be better than him. Oh, there he goes. Shalom, my brother.
Yeah, my fault about that.
It's okay.
My apologies. Because if I
It's
don't
okay.
answer that call, it's going to keep interrupting the sound value
Right.
or quality.
Right. I
So
know.
I had to tell that
I
person
already
I
know
was
how
busy
that
because I'm
goes.
doing it on my phone.
Right. I know
All
how
right,
that
cool.
goes. I just got a call now, so you got to answer back, or else they just, they blow up the phone.
Keep
You know
calling.
what?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So all right, moving right along. So you spoke about your mother at 17 years. When you said when you were 17, that was the first time that you met her. Would you like to
That's right.
discuss a little bit about that? Why you didn't have a relationship with your mother from, what was that, from birth?
Yeah, pretty much. Well, I was around her from birth, but nothing that I really recollect
Right.
because I wasn't even talking,
Right.
So what happened was, in short, my mother and my father, they had they spats and they grievances, and I
Right.
think they was even getting physical with each other,
Right.
but they loved each other from what I'm told. So what
Right.
happened was, she had my sister, Michelle, my older sister, and then she was told she will never have children again. What happened was she wound up having another child, and so they told her, well, we made an error. I don't know how you had him. You weren't supposed to be able to have another child, but if you have this child, your life is at risk. So she like over 90% risk of dying if she had me, and
Right.
and me dying as well.
Right.
So she chose to still have me. Her side of the family believed that my father was coercing her to have me. The
Right.
contrary to that, my father actually was pro-abortion, like
Right.
to save her life.
Right.
So the family believed that he was coercing her because my father was mad aggressive.
Right.
And so that caused a great rift, and they started saying and doing things to get my father in trouble. You know how that be with the mother's mother.
Right.
The grandmas be getting in the way and going too hard, doing too much. So
Right.
anyway, my mom ran away, went into the military, came back, gave birth to me, long story short, gave me to my father. And she dipped off again and disappeared and ran off from the heartbreak of the family. There's a lot of negative stuff being done and counteraction on both sides. So it tore up the family. I only found out when my grandmother, his mother, my father's mother, was passing. She started giving me game and letting me know more about the situation because I grew up not knowing much of anything. Nobody wanted to talk. My father, when he did show up periodically or pop up, and when I got back with him in my teenage years, around the time when my mom died, actually, he never wanted to tell me nothing negative about her. So he never told me anything because he
Right.
was like he always wanted to refrain from it, and he always hoped one day I would meet her and I could develop my own relationship with her. And he just wanted to be honorable. So my father never told me nothing negative about my mom's. I had to get this information from my mother's mother and from my father's mother. All right, and then I finally got to talk to my mother herself, and that's how I found out. But when I met her, she was dying of cancer, so I literally had 7 days with her. I never went to her wake or funeral because I was mad at her that she was dying because I felt like she wasn't there for me my whole life, and now she was leaving me again. So I was a young man. I was a very angry young man at that time too. So I reconciled a lot within myself since then, but at that time, I wanted to say so much to her, and I couldn't say it to her because she was dying. So I at least had enough integrity to not say nothing to her then. But it still don't mean I wasn't angry. I was even more pissed to have, at that time, I was more pissed to have met her and be forced to not be able to say what's on my mind because I realized she was dying.
So do you ever like sit back and reminisce, like, man, like I think for most people who didn't grow up with a mother, you didn't get that love and care from a mother. But you said you had your grandmother, so I guess she
Yeah,
substituted that them hugs
yeah,
and all those things
yeah.
that you
She
needed.
was
But
definitely mom.
right. But did you ever wonder, like, did you ever go back and think, like, wow, what would have been, how would I have turned out if my mom, if I had my mom in my life?
Yeah, I always figured that, when I got into the comedic science, right, and I was studying the 42 laws of my art. And one of those laws can be interpreted as you say I shall not when you wake up, and then before you go to bed, you say I did not. And hopefully the 42 things you say you shall not do before you go to sleep, hopefully all 42 you didn't do. And you just aspire to be better. I like those, what they call negative confessions or declarations of innocence. I like it. I'm not gonna force nobody to live by it, but I like anything that gives you discipline that can probably or more likely enhance your perspective and disposition on planet Earth and add value within yourself and to others should they encounter you. So I always like that. And one of the things that I like is I shall not live with regret. Right. So even though it's not an act that I perpetrated against her, I don't regret it. And what I mean by that is I believe regret is disrespect to the ancestors, is disrespect to God for those who are adherents of God. I believe when we regret or we are dissatisfied about outcomes in life, it's to suggest that someone made an error or a mistake with our existence, and I don't believe in that. So I believe these set sequence of events, there's any of a number of possibilities for us to go down paths. But even when we choose, there's a destiny already chosen for us, no matter what path we choose. So it's a thin line between will and free will in one sense. Like, for instance, I can go to a sneaker store and I can choose the sneaker I want. Yet someone chose amongst the options I would choose. I chose my sneaker, but in another instance, the selection was chosen for me. So did I really choose? You feel what I'm saying? So yeah, I did choose what I want amongst the options that were available to me for me to choose from. So in that respect, I could have an option to be my mom had they made certain decisions different, and that would have been I would have been able to thrive in that life, similar to the way I'm able to thrive in this life. But of course, there would be different outcomes, and so that may sound a bit oxymoronic, but the case in point is this: I'm content with what's going on now because it's already happening, and I don't want to plague my mind with that which is not consistent with this reality, because it didn't happen, so it's not happening.
Right. So
yeah,
why stress
I'm
yourself?
Appreciative of where I'm at right now.
Why stress yourself out over something that you can't control?
Word, because I may not like the version of me with both parents, so I might have been designed to go through what I went through to be the person I am today, because ultimately I got into health because I lost my grandmother and my mother to health problems.
Right.
My mother got cancer, my grandmother diabetes. So
diabetes, right.
My grandmother lost her house after having it for over 30 years, and that got me into real estate later on. My grandmother, because I had a temper, made me write out full essays to describe why I was mad. And I had to understand subject, predicate, body, introduction, all of that from a young age, because I was always getting in trouble. So I always had to write out what took place, who was the antagonist, who was the protagonist. I learned those words when I was a young man.
Right.
And I had to always break it down. And later on, I become a book writer. You feel what I'm saying? So it's like I was given the life that I can handle that someone else probably wouldn't be able to. I believe we all are given the life path that is designed specifically for us. But if I took your life path, brother, it probably would destroy me. Right. It'd probably be the very thing that I couldn't be able to handle. But this life path, I rectified and I reconciled within myself that I've been given, and I believe all people are given what they can handle. And should they transcend, they can achieve higher consciousness and understanding for their personal benefit here and after. That's what I believe. It could be wrong, but I believe I gave somebody my life and it probably destroyed them. But I don't believe if I got their life, I would do so good either. I was given the one that I can handle. Necessarily mean I'll succeed. You know, all of us don't succeed.
Right. Hey, you know, Coogee Rap had a
Hold on
song.
again, brother.
All right, no problem. All right, so the brother is taking time out of his day to actually give me this interview. So, you know, the little dropouts in between might be family matters, and that's understood. So we just be patient and wait for the brother to come back on, and just try to wait for him to come back on, and we could continue with the interview. I hope that everyone is enjoying the interview. Like I said, this interview is not about us going back and forth. We pretty much know where Brother Polight stands. I know that there are a lot of people that are going to feel a way about me doing this interview, but I did an interview with Harry Rosenberg. Go figures. I interview people. That's what I do, and I put forth understanding and try to. But I stand on my 2 feet, on my square, as Israel. So you don't have to worry about that. But I do want to branch out a little bit more, and it's about collecting information and having these people's lives journal, right? And because we never know, we never know. These brothers and sisters in the conscious community, even if they're not Israelites.
Yeah, I'm back again.
Okay. Yeah, I was just telling the people, once again, as you was gone, that I'm just documenting, journaling. I like to journal people's lives because you never know. Within our community, in the Hebrew community, I've interviewed a lot of elders. Some have passed away, and their interviews are actually, and I'm not saying that you're going to pass away anytime soon, but just as an example, they interviews are like a journal, and people go back and go, wow, I didn't know that such and such and such did this, or he did that, or he came from here, or this is what inspired him to do this or do that. And I think that these type of interviews are important because we could do the debates, that's all day. Sarnetta got that on lock. But who is journaling all these young black leaders, and who is getting their story and putting it out there? There's so many angles that we could go at this. I don't have to do what Sarnetta does. I could do what I do and spread it throughout the community, even being a Hebrew, and not compromise what I'm about and how I live. And no one has to compromise because we just asking common questions that people might want to know. So that's why, that's what I was just explaining to the people. How was it? G-Rap had a song back in the 80s, late 80s, called In the Streets of New York. Now, me and you both grew up in the streets of New York. I grew up Crown Heights, Brownsville, right there, borderline, Ralph Avenue. That's the borderline right there, right? Go down to Pickens Avenue, down there by the market, down by Brownsville Projects, BRC.
Yeah, about to say you in Brownsville now.
Yeah. So how was it, just explain to the people, you as a youth, growing up in, you said, I believe you said, or I heard you say Brownsville before. How was it growing up in Brownsville? I would say maybe for you it was in the 90s, that was more so your era. How was it for you? What was the name of the record shop down there? I used to go get my records. It was something Shack, man. It was something down there. I used to go
Radio
get
Shack.
No, it wasn't Radio Shack. It was was it Soul Shack? It used to be a little record store on Pickens Avenue, but that flees me. How was it for you growing up down there?
It was dope. I grew up in East New York and in Brownsville. I grew up right on the cusp of Brownsville because once you go behind 98th Street, East 98th Street, you're pretty much in Brownsville.
Right.
And so I was living on Rockaway Parkway between Winthrop and Rutland. We call that section the 90s or the 9
Yeah, the 90s. Yeah.
Yeah, so I grew up over there, and then I was on 94th and Rutland for a little bit by the plaza.
Right.
I went to that school, Walter Weaver 398.
Okay.
In the plaza, and then that was my elementary school, and then my junior high was Mahalia Jackson, and then my high school was Wingate.
390.
Yeah,
Wingate.
391.
391,
Yeah, 390
right.
is.
Yeah,
Yeah,
390 is by
Jackie
Albany
Robinson.
Projects. By Albany Projects,
Yeah,
right. 391.
yeah, that's Jackie Robinson.
Right.
Yup. So 391, Mahalia Jackson, and then I went to Walter Weaver. 398, that was the elementary school prior, obviously, and then of course I went to George Wingate High School. That's in the 50s. Yeah,
Right.
then 90s turned into the 50s out of nowhere when you're walking down
Right.
when Rutland Road or
Right.
Winthrop
That's the
to
high
get to
school
school. So
my
and
son
then
went to, Wingate.
no doubt, and then in Brownsville, I lived in the Brownsville houses.
Okay.
So you get
Notorious,
off
the
at
notorious
Saratoga.
Brownsville houses.
Yeah, on first floor. I grew up in Brownsville houses.
Oh
So you can get
man,
off, I think, Rockaway Avenue, or you get off at Saratoga.
Saratoga, right.
So, or you can get off at Southern Rutland Road, and then you can just walk. So it's almost the same distance where I lived at. So I used to be on Newport between Amboy and Herzl. I lived over there,
Right.
and then I also lived on Strauss and Blake.
You was
So
in the hood. Those are and
yeah,
those days was rough. Those days was rough in Brownsville. Now it's getting all gentrified and all that. But true, I remember going down there with my best friend had family in Brownsville houses, and there was cousins. They had cousins that lived like one lived on one floor and one lived on the other floor. They had beef with each other, bucking at each other, that sort of stuff. And we used to ride down there with our bikes. Brownsville was wild during that time.
it's definitely wild.
It was wild down there, man. We used to be like, man, these dudes down here, man, they crazy, you know?
Yup, and then when you were in East New York in the 90s, we used to always say summertime, mad killing. You had the Jamaicans on one end, and then as we get to the latter stages of the 90s or mid 90s,
Right,
we had the Decepticons,
right.
we had the Low Lives,
Low lives. I grew
then
up with that.
we had BM Dubs that was in the 50s, and then later
Right.
on you wound up with the Bloods and the Crips. And it was intense at that time
Right.
when it came in. And then you couldn't wear a jacket back then. Like if your jacket was an 8-ball jacket or an Averex or a Spider jacket, you had to have some real love in the community because somebody was going to steal it from you.
Yeah,
That was a fact. Somebody was taking
Yeah.
that jacket right off your back.
yeah.
Back then when you used to cross the train cars, somebody was going from train cars. So I mean, it was rough. It still hey, when you were in junior high, the older kids is coming, and they take your third rail hat. It was crazy back then, man.
If you ain't have an older brother
crazy,
or an older
man.
cousin or something or an older homie from the block, you was dead. I remember I got jumped at junior high school by some. It seemed like they was grown men. I was tightening up one of their boys back then. This probably a little bit before your time. There was a little bit before your time. I don't know if you run with the, but back then they used to wear the Oshkosh. You had the jumper with the hats on, and two girls was fighting, and I'm standing watching the fight. This dude snatched a hat off my head. I said, "You're gonna have to fight for that hat, man." I said, "You just ain't taking my hat." So I start tightening them up because coming from Panama, I was born in Panama. 10 years. I came here when I was 10 years old. So coming from Panama, the older guys always made you fight. Whatever street you was from, you had to learn how to throw your hands. It wasn't about stabbing or shooting. It was about throwing your hands. So I had skills. Man, I started tightening this dude up, slipping and doing all that. They was like, nah, this guy know how to fight. His older homies was there. These dudes had beds. They was already grown. They looked like grown men to me, man. They jumped me, man. They bum rushed me, man. They cut me my hair. I said, and this is my first introduction to America. Like, wow, this is what America is about.
This is what we doing.
They jump you in Panama. They give you a fair one. You go on somebody's block, you get a fair one. No one is going to jump you. They make you fight. So I was like, wow, that's what they do here. So my whole mentality just had to change living in Brooklyn. I was no, I got to adjust. I got to recalibrate. You know what I'm saying? Because they jumping you. They're not giving you no fair ones.
Oh, man, you ain't never lied. You'll shoot a fair one and get jumped right after.
Oh, man.
Depending on the outcome. Yeah, man. You ain't lied.
Nah, the streets
You
of
ain't
New
lying.
York was wild during. I mean, I went to a school where
Very
they
wild.
started that DCEP stuff in Park West. I went to Park West.
Yeah.
Like there was a lot of DCEPs up there. There was a lot of madness. I mean, people was getting shot in
Yo, I
schools.
know. I know, man. Yo, a lot of people don't know the Decepticons were putting in pain. That
Yeah.
shit was crazy, man. That shit was crazy.
And they
The
actually
deep,
started. They actually started in one of these guys had to. These guys had to test to get into this school. It was one of those specialized high school. They started, from what I heard, that they started in Brooklyn Tech.
I was gonna say that. Yep. Because you had Brooklyn Tech and Bronx Science was like the top schools
Right.
that you had to take a test for to get
Right.
in. Yep.
Right. So getting back to your life, where do you think you get this well, you spoke about your grandma making you write essays and making you do full page essays and protagonists and antagonists and all these things. So I would think that a lot of your intelligence comes from what your grandmother put in you initially. Would you say so?
Yeah, my grandmother and my father, because the
And your
years that my
father.
father put in, he was the
Right.
firstborn, so he was of the nation of gods and earths.
Okay.
So when I visit my mom's family, even though she wasn't around, her side of the family is Sunni Muslim, and then my grandmother, she the one that had the bag. So as far as she was concerned, she was taking me to Holy Rosary, and my father didn't mind because he knew the education was dope, and the nation of the gods and earths didn't have a school for us.
Right.
So he wasn't in a position to be like no to anything. He was like, you know what, my mom's gonna put you in Holy Rosary. Just know that all that shit is cap. Basically, he didn't say cap, but he a
Right.
non-cipher. All that stuff was non-cipher. Don't
Right.
take all that shit to the head. Just go there for the knowledge, right?
Right.
And so my grandmother was like, drink Jesus' blood and eat his body and, do the communion thing, do everything when you go. So I had three gods. I had the Sunni Muslim God, and I couldn't come in with my father's doctrine because, that's stuff for law. You know what I'm saying? That's shirk. That's binding partnership with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because you can't say that anyone else is God. You just have to bear witness to Allah and that Muhammad is his messenger and the seal of the prophet. So they ain't trying to hear none of that nation of the gods business with the cream of the universe and the black woman being earth and all that. They ain't hearing none of that. So that was like, I had three gods. I had the Catholic God, I had the Sunni Muslim God, and I had the nation of the gods and earths God. And then I had to commit everything to memory. So my pops was on me from 5 years old with breaking down the science. But I had liked the nation of God's doctrine more than I liked the Sunni Muslim and the Holy Rosary doctrine. So he instilled a lot in me memory-wise, because he used to make sure I don't take notes. Anytime he told me something, I had to remember it. And he asked me about it periodically throughout the whole damn day. He'd say, I got to invest my time and energy on knowing that the brain is a supercomputer, and anything you've been told once is already etched into your consciousness. No matter how hard it is, look for it and dig for it. It's there. You ain't got to take no notes. So I had to commit everything to memory.
That's that number runner. That's that number runner mentality.
Yeah,
the best number runners. The best number runners was the ones that memorized Miss Ann's number, Miss Sally's number, because you didn't want to get caught with all that paperwork.
Yep, and he was running his double believers and combos and all of that. So I know that shit. I used to go with him to the spot when he would gamble. So when I was young, so I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So he made me commit a lot of stuff to memory, and he used to tell me it's a mental. He said, just like you got calisthenics, you got mental calisthenics, and he's like, if you keep exercising your mind, eventually it's going to grow to the point of expansion where you'll always be able to remember things at an instant. And so I really couldn't take notes. I mean, sometimes I got in trouble when I came from school because I didn't take notes. The teacher used to be mad. Like, yo, he's not writing notes in class. And I used to be like, my father told me I can't take notes. I just got to remember everything you're saying. And my father had to come up to the school, and he would ask, what did you learn in school? And I would break everything down. The teacher used to look at me, and she got me put into a gifted class. I remember when I went to elementary school, I went to 5J3. That was the honorary class for the gifted. I was always in gifted classes. But my pops had me on, he was very militaristic on me studying. So
Right.
by the time he left me by age 8, and then his brother used to take care of me too, which was which was my uncle, his brother. So when my pops left, he picked up right where he left off. So I
Right.
always had the box. I always had to play basketball. Always had the box, and I played baseball so I could be better at boxing because he wanted to build my
Hand
triceps,
eye. Oh, okay.
and so my arms could stay up. You
Okay.
know, because you can't keep them shits down. You get
Right.
fatigued, and your shit
Right.
starts lowering, and you
Right.
get hit. So I was playing a lot of baseball only to get better at boxing. And
Right.
so I had to box all the time. You know, Brownsville at that time, boxing was very popular. So it
Yes,
wasn't hard to
sir.
find a gym. It
Yeah.
was easy to get in the gym. So I couldn't do nothing I wanted to do unless I did my boxing and then I played my basketball. And so if that just always had to commit everything to memory. Hold on.
All right, no problem. So yeah, how y'all feel the interview is going? I mean, I know some of you are, this is just an interview. It's not, is no, nothing. No, we're not talking philosophy here. We're not doing any of that. I just want to get out the box a little bit, step out the box a little, and do an interview with the brother. So, I think it's going pretty good. We don't have to touch on anything philosophical or anything like that. We could just kind of build, Yeah, I would like everyone to share the link, let everybody know what's going on. I know this was like during the time of the day where it's like an awkward time. Most people are still traveling home from work. They're not able to catch it. So that's understood. But I know that people will catch it later. Hopefully people will catch it later. So I just want to find out a little bit more about the brother because we see him. Some of us hate him. Some people love him. But let's see what the brother's all about, his upbringing, his beginnings, and what inspires him and what motivates him. So I think it's a beautiful thing. I think it's a beautiful thing. So just get your questions ready. I guess you could send the questions to Zion Lex and he'll send them to me because I won't catch everything in the message. All right. So please just send the questions. Yes, sir. So see my brother Zion Lex. Let's see who's in the building. Everybody that's on. Asa Hezekiah. Of course, brother Zion Lex. Dwayne Yosef, Light of Israel. Julie Figueroa. Daffy J. Lavia Aliyah. Aintopman. Olive Bay Consulting Group, LLC, Employment Services. That's a long name. Augustus Kane. DBO 89. Tyrone Jones. Daffy J. Hebrew Boy. Yes, brother Polight. Yeah, so
Yes.
So then you would say your greatest influences were those that were closest to you growing up. Who were like your
My
greatest?
grandmother and father.
Your grandmother
My
and father.
grandmother, my father, and my first wife.
And your first wife. Okay. Now, too many men don't say that their wives are like their greatest influences, but from what you said at the beginning, how she held you down, that definitely is it's an honorable thing. I guess she's seen the potential in you that you didn't see in yourself. Like I believe you said that earlier. She's seen the potential in you that you didn't see in yourself, and that's a blessing in itself. And I grew up with a lot of kids. You was probably that kid that, and these type of kids used to make me mad or angry. I would go to school the whole school year. And you know what I'm getting to. At the end of the school year, you had the what do you call it? Those not the SAT. What was the name of those
Yeah, fighting
ACT? Yeah,
the
the
regents.
ACT. Miss school the whole year. You come in and get a 90 on it and go to the next grade. Be like, this dude wasn't even here for the whole school year. How do we pass?
Yeah, yeah. The regents
You
exams and
you probably was
SATs,
one
all
of
that.
them kids, man. You probably was one of them kids. I used to go to school with a lot of them. But what do you think
I used to
about
love those
the
specimens.
public school system and what and does it damage our youth or does it help us? What do you think about because you went to Holy Rosary? That's what you said, right? So
Catholic school, yeah. In Brooklyn.
in comparison to the public school system, right?
Yeah.
How do you compare them? Because I mean, we look at a Catholic school and we say, oh, Catholic school, this, that, and the third. But in comparison to public school system, do you feel like you had a better education in the Catholic school rather than the public school system?
Tell you the truth, yeah. Minus the religion,
Right,
the system and their discipline was a lot better. You know, my focus wasn't on clothes because we had to wear uniforms.
right.
And you know, I hated that. I didn't want to be wearing no damn
You
uniform,
want to be
right?
dead.
But yeah, but you know, that's a Brooklyn thing,
Right,
especially child
right,
thing in general, but definitely Brooklyn, because you know we always spend our money on clothes, and after Easter, go Easter shopping,
right,
wear our Easter clothes from the
right,
weekend on Monday,
right.
Tuesday when we back at school,
Right, the
new
same clothes you wore
sneakers and
to
everything.
Coney Island on Sunday.
Yep, yep,
You went after school to that jean suit. You know what I mean?
yep. Your Easter clothes, you know it. You know how that go. So, man, you really know what it is in Brooklyn, man. So, yeah, you want to be part of that experience, but at the same rate, it makes you deviate from the original premise to go to school. You
Right,
ain't supposed to be focusing on who got the better clothes and who got the better shoes and who dressed the best. So a lot of that is a distraction. So in a more mature state of mind, as much as I love wearing different clothes and showing off, you know, I started going to school more for showing off than I was interested in the info. And then I wound up being sad sometimes because I ain't have the right amount of clothes, because I ain't have the right amount of money. And that's what
right,
made me start hustling even harder. And I wound up eventually being consumed by making the bread, making the money, and living the lifestyle that I missed out on a heck of an opportunity to really take advantage of what information they did have available in school, because it was a disconnect. And whether in Catholic school or in public school, there's no connection with the information. Like to myself, like when we went to chemistry class or biology class, I didn't really get the sentiment that I really need this info. Today, I look at that information and I say, man, I could have really made more proficient strides in those classes if I recognize how integral that information could have been to health,
right,
you know, or science of just who and what we are as a people. But when you go to school, I don't think we ever heard of the word melanin. You know, like
right.
we don't
Never.
learn
Nah,
nothing
you
that
don't learn
connects
that.
with us. You
You
feel
don't
me? Because
learn
it
that.
would be exciting if I read something or heard something that sounds like it has something to do with me, because that's the ego. So if the information catered to the ego a little bit more, I could say, well, I'll personally invest my time and energy to learn this info because it comes back to me. But everything we learned was just like a word of the vocabulary always seemed like it extended outside of us and it never would come back to any reason for us to need it later on in life. So therefore, it seems so unwarranted. And that's in both events, but Holy Rosary in general, they definitely provided better educational tools and resources
Right,
than that of the likes of public school, because when things got hard and I had to, no longer have the same friends because I'm a young man, and the little girlfriend I was working on back then in Holy Rosary was a dub because my grandmother said the tuition kept being raised higher and higher.
right,
And so my father didn't feel comfortable with his mother paying all of that for me and my sister to go to school. So they
right,
left my sister to finish her years in Holy Rosary because she was the more dysfunctional child. And
right,
because I was the more educationally astute, I always had to take the shortcoming. You know, so
You
she
can make
always
it.
had to
You
get
gonna make it, Negro. You gonna be all right.
anywhere. Yeah, like my sister, they had to baby her because she was bad. That's
Right.
just she was the bad child. Point
Right.
blank. She the one that she needed work. My father and her was always like cat and dog because my aunt and my grandmother used to always protect her and defend her. So she had a little mouth on her. My father ain't the type to have no child of his mouthing off, and it was just rough. You know, it was rough. And so he didn't have a woman to defer to for her other than my grandmother and my aunt, and they was giving her the pass because they was just worried about her because she was being bad.
Right.
So me now, she get the extra shoe because I would have got the better sneaker, but if she's being so crazy, they try to explain to me they need to give her more to calm her down. They was trying to pacify her. My pops was like, that's bullshit, but he
You.
didn't have the resources to give me the
Right.
type of sneakers and shit that I wanted.
Right.
So eventually, I went to the streets to find out how to get my money,
Right.
and I believe that methodology made me corrupt
Right.
because I'm like, you giving the bad person all the good stuff, and the good person just supposed to be content with what they got.
Or what they got.
Man, that made me throw away everybody God. I was mad at everybody God. I was mad at the Sunni God. I was mad at the Nation of Gods and Earth Information. I was mad at Holy Rosary and Jesus Christ. I was like, all this shit is fake. I was pissed off that, you know, the good person is not benefiting. And then, you know, my father said, well, you know, I ain't got the resources like your grandmother and my sister, which is his aunt. So I can't tell them what to do with their money, you know. But he said, son, you're going to work hard one day and you're going to realize all the stuff you wanted don't even mean nothing anyway. But he said, I do agree. You need to get it so you can get it out your system. So he said, I believe you're going to make enough money one day to get all the things you want. And then you're going to just let it go and realize it's superficial. So he said, I agree. They shouldn't spoil her because she's doing bad. You should get all the good stuff and maybe motivate her ass to do better. But he said, what I'm not going to do, I'm not going to bribe you into getting good grades. He said, you get the same ass whipping under any circumstance for coming home with the wrong grade. So, you know, that's what it was. If he gave me something nice, it was never because I got a good grade. He said a man should never be rewarded for doing what he's supposed to do.
That's right.
So he's
You know,
like,
it's
I'm
funny.
never going to get you a shoe.
It's funny the lessons that we get from our parents, right? That stick with us. No matter what
Yeah.
teachers we had, no matter, like, I had this discussion with a brother the other day, and I was like, you know, a lot of the godliness that we have, right, is already instilled in us. The goodness in us is already instilled in us from young, right? Is a good teacher will enhance it or make it worse, you know. But a lot of our parents already did the job. See, you say you had
That's
your
right.
father to 8 years old, and you could recollect everything from 1 to 8 that he told you. I mean, verbatim, and you're like
That's a fact.
recollecting it like he's right there. And that shows that our parents, you know, the things that our parents told us actually affected us and affect us to this day. You know, the teachings that they gave us.
My pop used to tell me so much about Earth and human beings
Right.
and my potential that I just looked at him like he was God. So when he was telling me, yo, we God, you know, I believed him because I was like, when I went to Holy Rosary, they ain't never dropped the knowledge my pops dropped. My pop knew the circumference of the planet Earth. I had to commit it to memory. So I know the circumference of the planet Earth is 24,896 square miles. You know what I'm saying? I had to know the speed of light. I had to know all this shit, right? So I used to talk to adults. He used to tell me, go ask that adult what's the speed of light. Go ask that adult what's the circumference of the planet Earth. You know what I'm saying? Go ask that person. He used to always make me try the lessons on people. And so I was like, yo, my pop's the smartest man on the earth. That's how I used to look at him. I'm like, yo, because nobody ever know the answer to these questions. So I would listen to anything my pops told me. He earned the right to raise me, in my opinion. I looked at him like, yo, my teachers don't even know some of these answers. I used to go to them and try them. So my father was the main person I would listen to tell me anything. Everybody else, I respect my grandmother because she's like my mother. She helped me with the affection part. And I see she a grinder. She paying for the bills and handling a lot of stuff, her and my pops. So I had to respect her on that socio-economical level. But as far as the knowledge was concerned, my father won me over where I was willing to listen to anything he told me to do because I was just like, yo, this man got mad knowledge, and he got more knowledge than my teachers, and my teachers the ones that got all these degrees. My pops ain't got all these degrees, and he know more stuff that I'm interested in. So I would just sit in and listen to the Sunni Muslim doctrines and all that stuff, and I just act like I hear it all, and I heard it, and when in Rome, do like the Romans. When I'm a young man, I was getting an ass whipping if I didn't confide in Sunni Islam, if I didn't confide in Holy Rosary information, that Catholic stuff. So when in Rome, do as the Romans. So I was a Catholic during some points in the day, and I was a Sunni Muslim during other times. And then I was a God, nation of the God and earth, during other times of the day, and I was more comfortable with that. But as I got older, I still found my way. But like I said, my father instilled so much information in me. By the time he left on my birthday, age 8, that's when he left. By the time he left, and I waited for him to come home to say thank you, because I had mad gifts and everything. I remember everything he bought me: a super duper double looper. That was a racetrack set. Back in the days, racetracks was popular. You always wanted to get one of those racetracks and stuff. So I remember, and he got me a skateboard. I always wanted that. And he taught me how to ride bikes when I was 7. He had a bike for me there. He bought me so much stuff. But then I was like, damn, the first time I got every single thing I ever wanted is the last time I seen him. Right. So that made me feel a way even about getting gifts. I never even wanted gifts for a long time. Even now, as an older man, I'd be uncomfortable getting gifts for my birthday. I normally buy gifts with somebody else on my birthday. I don't really like to get gifts on my birthday, but that affected me a whole lot, because I really looked up to him. And, we spoke as he got older, and I told him, as I got older and I started dealing with different women, I started seeing different mentalities and mindsets. I went back to my pops one day after a woman told me something real crazy. And I said, yo, Pop, I really understand some of what you were saying, man. Like, I don't agree with how you left. And he was suffering from alcoholism. He used to do a lot of drinking, too.
Okay.
So, he was beating me unnecessarily, physically whipping me because he was drunk.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So he did a lot of bad stuff, too. I would never tell on him because I was already down one parent. So I wasn't trying to be down, too. So I was just quiet. Like, I just took the ass whippings even when they wasn't necessary, because my love for him superseded the fact I knew he was wrong. I just didn't want to create a situation where he would leave, because I wanted to at least keep my father in my life. I didn't want to be walking around here with no mom or father. You feel me? So I had a lot of shit going on in my mind when I was young.
Right.
You feel me? And now my sister on the other end, when he hit her, she wasn't hearing that. She gonna call the police. She gonna tell my aunt. She gonna tell my grandmother. So I kind of grew up. Yeah, I grew up kind of resenting my sister, because I was looking at her like she's the straw that broke the camel's back. When my pops was like, yo, none of you women is listening to me. She out of control. Da 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 da. Now my pop had excellent points, but the problem was he was an alcoholic, and he definitely was wrong when he was abusing us physically. So it's hard to take him serious when he's also doing wrong. So I get both sides of the conversation, because my grandmother was like, you're not laying your hand on these kids no more. You got to get the hell out of here. And this is his children. She telling him what it is, and she's the only one that my father would really listen to. My father was getting scolded by his mother. And that taught me a lot, too, about discipline, because he used to tell me, he said, you see, the only person in this world that could tell me anything, son, is my mother. Always respect your mother. And that's your mother. I know your mother ain't here, but what we not going to do is disrespect our elders. So what you're going to see, the reason why I love my mom around me, so you see I humble myself before my mother. So I want you to humble yourself before me. Even when you know I'm wrong, you have to exercise humility, because I have seniority. Doesn't mean you have to agree. But as you get older, you wait for the right time to state your claim or your disagreement. So you say, you see me? Even when I disagree with my mother, I will not disagree with her in front of you. I will wait until we get behind closed doors, and that's none of your business. So if she scold me in front of you, I don't like it, because I'm not down with me being undermined in front of my children, but I'm not going to disagree with her in front of you. I'm going to go in the background, and I'm going to deal with her. And you got to practice the same thing. So like I said, he earned so much credibility to me that was many people didn't know, that I took him serious, even though he was wrong when he used to get drunk. And when he got drunk, he used to be scary as fuck. Like, his eyes be red, And I would go home when he was drunk, after 2 miles. And I see him come through the door. I would just go upstairs and put myself to bed and go to sleep and hope he don't even talk to me. I would just put the covers on and just hope. I don't even want to walk around him because he's going to find something wrong with me. So I just go to bed and hope that liquor get out of his system. And that's the type of shit I was living in and loving, just to try to keep a damn parent in my life. So when he left, I was blaming myself. I felt like I ain't do enough to keep my father in my life, you know? So I went through a lot of shit mentally, dealing with the absence of my father, dealing with the absence of my mother, you know? And then the lack of information being told to me about what was really going on. Like, if my father, he used to give me clues, but if he would have told, he used to always tell me how rough it was being a black man. But all his stories about being a black man, when I got older, I found out was his personal account. He just wouldn't tell me. So a lot of what he told me about what black men go through, he was actually going through at that time. And I didn't realize it until I got older that he was venting to me, but he didn't want to come off weak. He didn't want to come off like he was complaining. He was just trying to tell me, be prepared for the system, you know, and how they come at you. Because my mother's side of the family was constantly sending them to court to fight for their right to his children, even though my mother wasn't around. It was a lot of chaos going on that I wasn't privy to knowing, because he tried to keep it away from me and my sister so we could just focus on school and being children, you know. And as we got older, both my sister and I realized how much our father kept away from us, so our spirit can be pure and we wouldn't be mad at other adults. So later on, even my sister had to come to terms with the fact that Pops, even though he had his mistakes, his errors, and his errors were the worst errors on, I'm gonna say the worst on planet Earth, but man, them ass whippings was crazy. It was just so unnecessary. I'm not talking like I really was wrong and I got an ass whipping. I'm talking he get drunk and he get violent. That's just it. Like, there was no excuse behind it. That was the alcohol controlling the nigga. So but when we got older, both my sister and I realized, like, yo, damn, Pops was like a saint. He was just so damn aggressive, we could never see him like that, you know. But when we got older, we said, yo, he never told on nobody. He never dry snitched. People was doing some negative shit to my father. Mad negative stuff. And all sorts of people trying to separate us from him and everything. And he was fighting it. So we understood sometimes, you know, children are weird in a way where children want to love the very enemy. And what I mean by that is, children be clinging to the people in the family that really don't have their best interests at hand, because they play this, you know, sweet auntie, sweet uncle role. Right? But all the while, they doing all the dirt, and then you thinking your parent is mad strict and negative, but your parent the one trying to protect you, but they also not trying to spoil your relationships with their siblings and everybody. So as we got older, we was able to see, yo, the people we was loving and trusting the most, they were negative, and our Pops was really positive. He just never wanted to spoil our ability to connect with our family members, so he would never tell us. You know, so that's why I got a lot of love and respect for my father, you know, even though he had his errors. And I begrudged him for a while for leaving me the way he left. But as we got older and I got to speak to him one man to the next, I forgive him. I mean, the house he living in now, I bought for him. You feel me? That's just what it is, because he taught me loyalty. You know what I'm saying? So I got it for him. I got him the house that he living in while I was angry at him.
Oh, wow.
You know, because he taught me loyalty. And I never got away from the stuff he taught me.
And it also goes into honoring. It goes into honoring your parents. You know what I mean?
That's right.
I know that the scripture speaks of honoring your parents, so it goes into the conversation of honoring your parents. You know what I'm saying? And
so
some of the
matter what the
things,
circumstance.
and some of the things that you've said, also are things that we learn. You know, as far as parents and respect and honor and loyalty, not putting your hands on them, all those things.
Oh, wow.
You know all those things.
Some people quote scripture and they tell you, spare the rod, spoil the child. Right? And they go too far with that. You know, I believe it's all right if, like, you smack a child on their hand and tell them no. But the way my Pops taught me, he said, yo, on the real, he said, yo, by the time you done at age 7, You should be intelligent enough for me to talk to you without me having to physically afflict you or intimidate you. But he said that's only under the circumstance the right food and the right resources. Because when you don't have the right food and the right resources, you're going to be irrational. And if the people in the environment don't have the right food and the right resources, they're going to be irrational. You're going to have irrational people trying to teach you morality, and they won't be able to follow it themselves.
Right.
So he used to tell me, the rest of my family mean well, but he was like, they don't got no doctrine. They don't got no law. They ain't got no order. He like, they say they Catholic and they say they Christian, but they don't got no rules and no discipline and no foundation that they really take serious. So you see, they gonna do what they want to do. They're gonna cuss up a storm. They're not following no dietary law. You know, cause my pops used to, eat the 1 meal a day, as suggested by Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad and everything like that. And so my pops he had his ways of what he was doing. Not that they weren't infallible, but at the same rate, his whole thing was the people that's trying to teach me about morality didn't stand on nothing consistently themselves to do so. So why should I even take them serious? And he said, if people don't have no moral system or discipline, then how can they educate a child properly? They said they're not qualified to educate you because you got to see what they stand on in order for you to follow them.
Right.
And they ain't got no place to lead you.
Right. You have to have a discipline.
So he was like, that's why you have to have a discipline. He said he don't give a heck where it come from or what it does. What it does, if you ain't got no set rules, principles, edict, foundations, statutes, commandments, laws, if you ain't got none of that as a reference point, he said, man, don't take them people serious, because their decision making is going to be very selective. They're going to be able to do harm to you when they feel it's warranted, and they don't forgive themselves for it in the name of Christ. You know what I'm saying? So he's like, just be careful around those people. And he told me, when I get children, make sure I already have something I stand on as a point of reference. So at least they can value it and reference it, and if there was a disagreement, we can go back to that particular book or that edict that everybody knows what they're in for, so they know you're not making it up because it's advantageous to you.
Right.
So yeah, man, those are things that my pop taught me that I'm like, yo, I value it, because as I got older, I was like, he gave me things that was more important than I learned in the public school system. And that's why I wanted to homeschool my children, because which I do homeschool every child I have, and we home birth, because I recognize the folly in allowing somebody who's the progeny of our oppressor to teach our children.
Keep left
and I want to have more control.
Then keep right.
Hold on.
Exit 115.
I got you.
I want to have more control
I-15 south
and more say.
Then keep right
over what it is that my child or children are going to be learning. I want to control the curriculum. I want to teach them the things that school doesn't feel is suffice to teach us as a people. Because like my pops used to tell me,
keep right.
He said ask me, what race is in power? And I used to say, white race, he's like, the white man. So he's like, do you think they're going to give you an equal footing and as far as taking the power? And I said, yeah. And he was like, no, son, nobody who got power is going to teach another people how to take their power from them. So if you really want to get to the top, you're going to have to learn that there's a difference amongst the races, and you're going to have to understand what the agenda is. And so I took that, and that's why I'm homeschooling to this day and doing the home birth. Why is it doing?
Hold on. Yes, it's interesting with the homeschooling, because I started homeschooling my children. My children were homeschooled. I think one was homeschooled to 3rd grade, and the other one was homeschooled to maybe 2nd grade. And it makes a big difference. By the time they went into the public school system, they were like so much more advanced, and you understand the fragile state of the public school system. I have a daughter right now that's going into her last year at Wellesley College. Now, Wellesley College for women, that's like one of the top colleges. She graduated #1 in a high school class and all of that. I have another son that he's in Purchase College right now, and they were homeschooled, and they do very well, and
That's what's up.
what's funny enough is that I have a younger son that he's attending a private school right now, and he is this is the funny thing, in the private school, predominantly Caucasian in the city, 17th Street, and they're teaching him about the transatlantic slave trade. They have like a whole semester of teaching them about the dynamics of the transatlantic slave trade, where it started, the players in it, and I'm looking at these notes and I'm like, nah. I said, is he teaching this to everyone in the class, even the white kids? He said, yeah. So what it made me realize is that they know. They teach their children, because the notes that my son was bringing home are factual, or things that we know, as the community and the conscious community.
Wow.
And I'm saying to myself, I'm like, they're teaching them that. My son is like the spook who sat by the door, so they have to teach it to him. But in the public school system or in the inner cities, they're not teaching our kids that. They're just teaching them Martin Luther King. They're teaching them Malcolm X.
Yeah, I never got taught that in school.
Harriet Tubman. That's all they teach you.
Yeah, I never got taught about the transatlantic slave
Prepare
trade
to exit the highway
while I was in public
in 2
school ever.
miles at
Wow.
exit 109A.
Look at that. And
So
he's getting
I
it in
agree.
private.
I know totally how you must have felt.
Yeah, I was like, hold on,
See
because
what I'm
the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to check the information, because hold on.
Word up.
Yeah, let me check that information. Let me see what he's teaching you. So I'm checking the notes. I'm like, hold on. I said, there's a white teacher teaching you this? He's like, yeah. So, and he's breaking down, they teaching them about Jim Crow, who was Jim Crow, where it started. They teaching them about the Reconstruction period. They taught them about they taught them everything. And I'm like, hold on. A whole semester they teaching you this? What's the first I would think in mind is,
like,
what's the plan? What are y'all doing? You know what I mean? Like, what's the catch? But I had to think like, nah, what they teach their children. My son just happens to get in. They can't change the curriculum. And they know, but our children stay deaf, dumb, and blind. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And those are the things that you look into.
Exit the highway.
I don't know how much time you got, but I still got a few more questions. I know you on a road trip, and you here? All right. Let me see. What influenced you to join the Nuwaubian community, and at what age did you do that?
Highway at exit 109A.
Okay, hold on real quick.
All right, no problem.
Yeah, make sure I don't miss that turn. That shit.
Give me 1 second, brother Polight. I'm gonna come back.
Okay,
you do what you
I'm
got to
back
do.
on.
I'll come back in about a minute. I just got to call my son for a second.
Okay, I'm on though right now, so I'm good. Okay.
All right. We're gonna wait for Brother Polight to come back on. So far, how do you rate the interview? What do you feel? I know it's different. I know y'all thought that we was gonna be going back and forth arguing, but actually, and I know that some of you are shocked and amazed, and when some of you look at this later, that you're gonna be amazed. But I just want to have a bill with the brother, interview him about his life. Yeah, I'm going a bit outside of the box of what I'm used to doing, but I think that is important. It's important to do things like this. Um, we understand that Brother Polight doesn't agree with everything with the Hebrew community, and we as well don't agree with everything that he might do. But I think that it's time that somebody does interviews like this in order to get to know these brothers and sisters a little bit better, rather than he's given a real detail a real detail explanation of his beginning and the things that influenced him and why he might have took certain paths in his life. And I think that's important for every man and for every woman, because it helps to shape and mold the person that we become. And I absolutely believe that it molded him to become the person that he has become, and why he might do certain things the way that he does them, and why he feels a certain way about certain things. So I think it's a very powerful interview, and just bear with me, just bear with me. Just don't forget to like the video, share it to your different platforms. You can also hit me up on the dollar sign on the bottom. You know what I'm saying? You could make donations to us you just press that dollar sign. Hopefully our brother will come back on shortly. He is also a business person, so he has to answer his call. So this was done with him traveling a far distance, and he agreed to the interview. So it's definitely appreciated. And like I said, we could go back and forth, and we could have all types of arguments and do all type of stuff, but I don't feel like that's progressive. And I feel like I interview Harry Rosenberg. Why can't I interview a brother? And at the end of the day, what connects us is what we look like and what people see us as. So that is what it is. So definitely, I still also have to catch up with. I also have an upcoming sit down with Brother Tazariak, and I'm gonna do the same thing with him. And as y'all know, he's messianic. We're non-messianic, but it's not gonna be about philosophies. The interviews are gonna be just like this, just to get to know a person, because we see these people in the conscious community, and we don't really understand and know what they're about, and we need to get to know each other a little bit more. So the interview with Brother Tazariak will be coming soon, hopefully sooner than later, and we could get down some of his history and how he came about in his beginning and his upbringing. That's what I'm more interested in. I leave the debating and the back and forth to my brother Zion Lex. So yes, Brother Polight. So what influenced you to join the Nuwaubian community, and of what age did you join?
Okay, I joined the community when I was 19,
19.
and I joined them because the literature that my wife bought me, Dr. York's books, was the first set of books that I read when I started embarking upon this conscious journey. So I read the mind book, but I asked for a book on the mind. And so she got me the mind book. I actually got that book from a person named Newbie. That was the first book that really got me really going. We was downtown Brooklyn, and I said, I need a book on the mind. And he had a book called The Mind Book. Then after I read that, he said, yo, the next book is Your Potential. It looked just like it, only difference it said Your Potential on the front cover. And it was written in scriptural form. And it was very practical. It was no information trying to make me believe in anything in particular. It was just about the mind. And it had a little health thing, a few health incentives in there, but it was about the mind. And I read Your Potential. And I really needed those two books to edify me and build a foundation for where I would be, which would be today. So I read the Mind Book by Dr. York, Your Potential by Dr. York, The Sacred Wisdom of Tahuti by Dr. York. That's when I started leaning towards the Kemetic information. Like, what is this? I still was learning though. And then I read Jesus Found in Egypt. And that book had me like, that woke up something in me where I'm like, man, because I've been in all that Catholic school and Sunni Islam and Nation of Gods and Earth. So it woke something in me where I'm like, yo, I need to study more about this. And then I also read Let's Set the Record Straight. So I started learning about the Moors. And then I started realizing I was seeing people wearing them headdresses. And it's so amazing how you can learn about something and it's everywhere in front of your face. But when you don't know nothing about it, you don't realize it's going on every day around you. So it's just like learning a new word. You'll learn a new word and then all of a sudden you realize it's been used so much times in your life and it's been on billboards and everything, but when it wasn't brought to your attention, you had no cognizance of it. Right. So same way with information. So I read the Mind Book, Your Potential, The Sacred Wisdom of Tahuti, Jesus Found in Egypt, and Let's Set the Record Straight. And that was the history book. So me reading those books, I found out I was interested in studying law. I was interested in studying history. I was interested in studying the Moors. I was interested in religion and finding out where we've been lied to. And then I was just interested in, is God black or what? You know, it just woke up a lot of stuff in me. But separate from that, I know I was on a mission to make my wife and I's life better. So I had to stay the course, even though I'm like, damn, I got to study this information too. So I had to double up on books now. I had to do one part of my reading for my own personal spiritual sojourn and the other part of my reading to really find out what's going on in my head and why am I so negative and why I want to fight and be criminal and fight my, abuse my own people and everything. So the Mind Book and Your Potential was helping me with that type of stuff and the Sacred Wisdom of Tahuti. But Jesus Found in Egypt and Let's Set the Record Straight was great. So after that, my birthday came. And when my birthday came, it was the first time I ever got books for my birthday. And my wife had bought me those books and she didn't know how I would take to it. And I was so excited because my money was real low because I stopped selling drugs. So it was like all I wanted was to read. And she got me Dr. York's What is Spirit and Soul and Eternal Life After Death. Those were the next two books I got. These are all the books I got in that order. So I read those two books. And now I was like, yo, this is deep. Because I never considered any of these ideas before. So all of this was like, I had to give love to the brother who presented these ideas to put me on the path. So a lot of times when people be like, man, that's your teacher. Yo, bro, I can't control who's the reason for me getting conscious. Because I read nothing in those books that got anything to do with the charges that he ever got called for. Right. Those books have nothing to do with the accusations. Those are books about information. Right. So like any other person, the person that teaches you, you like, man, I got to give them props, respect, because they're the reason my eyes is open. So I got to credit my wife. She presented me the books. Right. But then when I got those books put me on a path. I was reading everybody else's. But naturally, since he wrote so much books, I was like, I'm going to read anything this author has to say because he woke me up. Right. So I'm like, man, I'm going to read everything he has to say. And he didn't teach like to believe everything he says. He always used to be like, don't believe it, check it out. So I would read things and I would have my own perspectives. And, some people in the community looked at me weird for having my own perspective because some people became very much entranced. And I get it because he shares so much knowledge. And when somebody's responsible for waking you up, they could do no harm. I understand how that works, but I was really reading what he writes. And I'm like, yo, he don't say be a slave to the information. And I certainly ain't no slave. And I ain't come out of this bondage of mental slavery to be a slave to another black man. I just came out of damn bondage just being conscious now. I don't want to go back into another form of slavery. Right. You know what I'm saying? So I wound up having issues with people in the community all the time because I kept seeing things differently. But man, that brother could teach. He got me interested in etymology. I didn't even know what the word was until I started studying his books, etymology. Okay. And how important it was. Yeah, I didn't know how important etymology was. And just studying language. He got me like, man, I got to start studying language. So, it's been a great journey. I appreciate it. And that was one of my greatest milestones was reading his books to get to where I'm at today, because it opened up my mind and it let me see how much information I was lacking in and where I need to study. I needed to know, when you get conscious, you're trying to find out, not trying, pardon my language, when you get conscious, you want to find out, where should I go with this? Oftentimes people contact me, Brother Polight, what's a good first book to start with? You open my mind. You feel me? So that's what I was going through with Dr. York's books. I was reading and then I'm like, yo, how do I center myself? This man's talking about so much different things. How much books he wrote? And I just grew fond of him as a teacher. And then for me to develop a friendship with him and be able to talk to him on the phone and him giving me responsibilities and everything, he really coached me into having a family. And he gave me nothing but positive information that has nothing to do with anything he's ever been accused of. And so I can only deal with him on the level of connection that I established with him based on his mentorship. He helped raise me into being a better man for my family because he taught me a lot about family, all of which I would say to this day has not been wrong. He's never misinformed me about how to be a man to my wife and how to be a man to my children. He's never miscommunicated anything to me as far as the results that I had and the contentment that my family has with me. So I always have a special place in my heart for him because he played the role of a father for me for many years into my journey becoming conscious. I can never trade that in for nothing or for nobody. So if people be like, yo, denounce him, say this, say that, and you got people in your family that's done bad things, or people in your family that's accused of doing bad things, they remain your family. Dr. York, he's family to me. Like that don't change because I don't arrive at where I'm at today if Dr. York doesn't play a contributing role to saving my life. He made me more literate. He made me want to read books. He made me want to study. He made me want to deal with a diversity of information. He made me take the time out to want to study Islam, Christianity, Judaism, not just for my own gain, but for the benefit of other people that I may be able to share enlightenment to, so they can probably widen their perspectives up more. If not leave it, at least become the best version of themselves. And that's what we was taught to do. Get the knowledge so we can empower our people to be the best version of themselves. And I can't turn around from that. So I'm always grateful to that brother for all the progressive information he taught me. Because like I say it again, for the record, I haven't read anything that told me to do anything that he's accused of. So as far as his books is concerned, I named you the ones that mean a lot to me. The first 7, the Mind Book, Your Potential, Jesus, the Mind Book, Your Potential, The Sacred Wisdom of Tahuti, Jesus Found in Egypt, Let's Set the Record Straight, What is Spirit and Soul, Eternal Life After Death. And after that, I read the Sacred Records, and that's there for the Tumre, and of course the Holy Tablets. All of that was just great reading and a lot of concepts and just ideas. Like, do I know if all that stuff is true? Nah, the most practical books I ever read by him is the Mind Book and Your Potential. Those books anyone could do a lot with. And the Sacred Wisdom of Tahuti. Very powerful reading material right there. Oh, the beginning book. I skipped that one. Before What is Spirit and Soul and Eternal Life After Death, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention before that book. So there's 8 is the beginning book. That's a book that has an image of a monkey just standing there with his chest protruding, side angle. And I used to be on the train and reading that, and people used to be looking at me because Dr. York covers always was so controversial. People think he was reading devil books. The Christians always started reading devil literature because his damn covers, man, was so provocative. And the 666 book, the Are There Black Devils, which is actually book number 1, and that came out the day he got incarcerated. Are There Black Devils? And that's book number 1. And he gave a lot of prophetical accounts in that book. And it's so interesting that came out on May 8, 2002. But yeah, he just made me a reader, man. And becoming an avid reader, The Family Guy was also another very powerful, practical book. Purity and Neatness, another powerful book that every family should have in their house. Purity and Neatness, The Family Guide, Children of the Sun or People of the Sun. Like, man, I learned about melanin from Dr. York. So when a person espouses you to that much information, you always got to have a special place in your heart for helping them to develop that level of zeal towards scholarship and just learning in general.
What's funny is when I first, early in my studies as a Hebrew, one of Dr. York, funny enough, one of his sons was a member of the congregation I was a member of. His son, he took on the name of Israel, Izzy. We used to call him Izzy. Slender
Yeah.
kid. When I heard Dr. York speak, I said, "Oh, I see where he get it from." Because Izzy talk real fast. He got the movements, and
Yeah.
he's intelligent. But Izzy, he talk real fast, and he talk with his hands. I said, once I seen his father talk, I said, I see where Izzy get it from. So he was cool kid. Very knowledgeable, took to information, and he went on his own journey. I haven't seen him in a few years. He popped up. I seen him, I think, about 9, 10 years ago. He popped up back to the congregation that we was at, and he came through there, and he was still looked the same. I always had a good rapport with Izzy. He was a good kid. So funny enough, I knew one of Dr. York's sons, and that was so you never physically met Dr. York when he was out here doing the works. You basically met him through correspondence
When
and
he was
talking on the
incarcerated.
phone. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that's good to know, because I didn't know that. I thought that you basically, you grew up with him and understood a lot of the things. So I have some
Yeah.
other questions here that I want to ask you. What made you interested in African spirituality as well as the teachings of Dr. York? I think you've answered some
Well,
of that already.
oh yeah, no doubt. Well, what got me interested in African spirituality was Dr. York's books, Dr. Ben,
Right.
Dr. Clark, Theophile Banga, Sheikh Anti-Jeff, because it's just so much information I never considered. I didn't even care about where I was from too much. The last time I remember caring about knowing anything about Africa was from our the Nation of the Gods and Earths. They be saying Asiatic, and at that time it's called Asia. If you listen to what they talking about, they
Right.
doctrine. So some of that was a little confusing for me when I was younger.
Right.
So I wasn't even sure if I was being Afrocentric when I was making subscriptions to the Nation of the Gods and Earth's teachings. Because I was a young man. I'm 5 years old soaking this all up. 6 years old, 7 years old. You feel me? So some of that stuff was kind of over my head, or I didn't connect the dots. So I'm not taking anything away from them. I'm not saying that they're not Afrocentric. However, I started really contemplating about the ancient African archetype of conception as I started reading from these various scholars, because all of them kept talking about Africa. It was a recurring theme. And each time I kept learning about the wisdom that comes out of Africa, the architecture that comes out of Africa. Like when I was studying the Let's Set the Record Straight book, and you learn about Benjamin Banneker or Big Ben Bay or Benjamin Banner, and how he inducted George Washington into the Freemasonry, and his role in the almanac, and him dealing with the blueprint for the White House, and it being named after the old capital of Morocco, Dar Bay Dar, or Home White Home. I'm reading all this stuff. I remember from reading that book, I'm like, what? The White House? And that's why it has a mosque-like disposition when you look at the White House. And I'm like, and then I go in deeper, and then I realize it's also reflective of our confidence in the divine feminine, because the dome shape really emulates the breast, and the top of it being the nipple, and how our ancestors always consecrated their architecture towards principles that were underlined in our physiology as men and women, whether it be the obelisk or it be the mosque. All right. And so I'm like, yo, we deal with signs and symbols, and I just started being blown away. And then and Dr. York's 666 book and everything like that, I would start seeing, the all seeing eye with the CBS symbol, the Bayonet symbol on the Chrysler. And
Right.
you know, he
Right.
was just showing you like, yo, what the hell? They've been putting these signs and symbols, and I
Symbolism.
thought
Yeah,
the white man
symbolism.
created them. Yeah, and I'm thinking the white man created these symbols, and it just
Right.
means whatever they say it means contemporary wise. And all the while, these are ancient symbols, not being borrowed but being stolen because they're not given credit from which it derives,
Right.
to whom from which it derives. So I was like, man, you think you are alive on planet Earth knowing things, and then somebody starts sharing information, you start looking around like, and I'm reading Dr. Ben's books, and he got his approach,
Right.
and even when the scholars disagree, because Dr. York was very innovative,
Right.
and that's just the proper way to say it. He's very innovative. So a lot of the rest of the community that made subscriptions to African conceptions would be against them because they would say, hey, no, that didn't happen in Africa. That's what you're doing. But when you are an adherent or follower of Dr. York, you realize how important it is to establish your own phraseologies and coinage. Perhaps there should have been greater efforts sometimes to say, hey, this is what I'm doing in particular. This is not something that exists ancient wise. And that's the problem that I believe a lot of Nuwabians struggle with is if you're not taught how to employ the scholarly method, you may misconstrue an innovative methodology being employed by Dr. York for
Right.
something that's archaic or ancient. And that's the problem, knowing how to discern on a scholarly level what he came and what he presented, which was his right, versus that which is ancient or old, that our ancestors were obliged to, okay, or corresponding with the same. So, and then that's stuff that you just got to go through depending on, you see, me being a teacher, I was commissioned to have to prove what I'm saying. So later
Right.
on, I would realize, oh, shoot, this is what Doc is doing. This ain't what the ancient Egyptians did, or this ain't what the ancestors was on, or, you know, I had to be able to make those distinctions when they come. Otherwise, I'm looking like a fool in front of people, not knowing the difference between the two. So, and still, I've never condemned them for it because this is a man who always created communities for his people to live in. Whether it was Bushwick and owning both sides of the street, having a movie house,
I
pizza shop,
remember that.
bookstore,
I
temple,
remember that.
you know, that's powerful. Or whether it's
The
just an Abra,
green. It was like
upstate New York.
the green and black. The green and black buildings, huh?
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
remember
So
that.
own laundromat, owning both sides of the street, or whether it's just an Abra and the 19 classes upstate New York, or 404 Shadydale Road, 476 acres of land, Eatonton, Georgia. And with Spinks blowing water out their mouths as you cross the bridge, our own museum with like 24K gold, solid life-size unks and pyramids and obelisk and everything on the land, and seeing everyone had to have an afro or your head was bald, and you had to make other people was like, well, those ain't the name. Those pyramids was built the same way. Those pyramids. That's not the point. I get what he was doing, and I respect that. That was powerful. And so I just realized every teacher contributed. You know, like he used to tell us, Yahweh ben Yahweh was powerful. And I know some Hebrews don't like him and everything, and I get it. But we just respect organization. That's what he told us. Respect it. We don't gotta follow everything people say, but we gotta respect organization, man. We gotta respect when people have the gift to organize our people towards truth. Whether we feel
Right.
they deviating or deflecting or whatever, we gotta respect that. We gotta respect people's given ability to organize, because that's not a gift that everybody got. Everybody's
Right.
not gonna hearken to the call of any teacher or any leader.
Right.
That's just not something that happens every day. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Nor that person who has that ability to say, I'm gonna build the infrastructure,
Right.
and we're gonna go as far as living separate and different from the rest of the world, whether they call us a cult or not. I respect that. You know, I
Right.
just respect power. I respect organization. I respect leadership. I'm
Right.
down with all of that.
Yeah, my teacher told me that Dr. York back in the days, he came through the doors of Hebrew Congregation Hashabah Yisrael. I don't know if it's true. That's what he told me. He used to attend there, and that he was part of a singing group, or he had a singing group. I don't know if that's the right story or not, but I believe it was something like that. That he was part of a singing group or something like that back in the day. I'm not sure how true that is. You might know better than me.
Oh, no doubt. Let me
All
get
right,
this
no
call
problem.
real quick.
So once again, we're getting to a few more questions. I see my brother Zion Lex is in the building. He joined in on the hangout. I don't know if he would like to say something at this moment. And don't forget the
Shalom,
super
shalom.
chat. Go ahead, Zion.
Hey, shalom, shalom. I just wanted to chime in briefly. This is Brother Polight's interview, but I wanted to say so far, this is a very empowering interview. We get a chance and an opportunity to see Brother Polight in a light that we normally don't. Polight does not share all of our views, nor do we share all of Brother Polight's views. Brother Polight has issues with things that me, myself, Zion Lex has said or done, and I also have issues with things that Brother Polight has either said or done. But nonetheless, I respect the contribution of our people, no matter what spiritual system they can be found in. And I know that we have differences with some of our people, and some of those differences sometimes become nasty, sometimes become vile. But the moment that we give up on our people and we become enemies to one another, we've actually joined hand in hand in white supremacy. That has always been my philosophy. My father always told me, when you give up on your brother, you actually give in white supremacy more yardage in the playing field. You're helping them to gain ground. The moment you give up on your brother, the moment you are willing to give up on your brother, you're giving white supremacy more yardage, more playing field. So my point is that we should always look to unite. We should always look to get over our differences, because the ultimate bottom line is we do need one another. So we, in this instance, is allowing Brother Polight to be almost reintroduced into our community via this unbiased dialogue, so as to see some of his origins, what led up to his intuition in the community, and we have some questions prepared for him that may press some current issues, but nonetheless still jog along the lines of trying to figure out what it is to be Brother Polight today, what is his objective, what is his aim, and what is his goal. We also want y'all to stay tuned tomorrow. I'll be joining Brother Polight's live stream, and I'll also be on there. It's going to be another powerful dialogue. I thank the family for tuning in. I thank Chief Uzziel for almost setting the standard on how to conduct the interview. I'm not sure if people are paying attention, but Chief Uzziel is allowing Brother Polight to speak, and he's rarely interrupting him. Something that, if you're just listening, you may not pick up on, but for people who are constantly being interviewed, such as myself, it makes a major difference when a person allows you to finish your point and bring completion to your ideas without cutting you in. It makes for a more fruitful and healthy dialogue. And with that, I turn it back over to our brother Chief Uzziel.
Thank you, brother Zion Lex, for your your compliments and for everything that you did for setting up this interview for me. And I thought it was important. I think it's important in the long run, because when all the smoke clears and we all get old, we all in our 60s, if the Most High God bless us to get to that age, 60s and 70s, we're going to look back at all the contention and laugh at it, because we're a different period in our lives. And I think that moments like this help to build a rapport, because like I said at the beginning of the interview with Brother Polight, at the end of this, we have a common enemy, and we have a common thing that we have. When they look at us, they don't see Israelite, Christian, Muslim, 5%er, Nuwabian, Moor. They just see, the N-word, and we have to come up with solutions as to how we're going to help our people in the diaspora, help them to become more knowledgeable, and not only that, help them out of certain conditions. That's our duty as the next generation. And if all we leave is a legacy of arguing and fighting, then what are we leaving for the upcoming generation? So I believe that interviews like this are important, so that when people see this in the future, say, oh, there was actually a Hebrew, and Brother Polight or Brother Reggie or Brother, or Blue Pill or Red Pill, and all
Jabbar,
these people. Hey,
Jabari.
Jabari, Brother Jabari, that actually could get to a point where they could speak, and people could get to know people. Like I said, it's not going to sway my belief for the way that I stand, but I believe Brother Polight said it best. He said, if you don't have a principle or a law or something that you follow, that you stand on, then you wishy-washy, and that's true. That's why people who fall out of their principles and the way that they live, people that still live within those principles, look at them at a distance and look at them as wishy-washy, because your principles is what you stand by. You see, I respect a Muslim who lives as a Muslim, and that's what he lives as. You know what I mean? I might not agree with all his philosophies and everything that he says, but he lives by those principles, and you have to respect it. His wife wears a hijab and she wears a skirt. She's not wearing tight jeans. You know what I'm saying? And he follows that, and he lives by that. When the month of Ramadan comes, he fasts during the daytime. He's not eating food during the sneaking food or water, whatever, during the daytime. I have to respect that. I mean, I might not agree with it. It's not my philosophy. I might not agree with it, but I have to respect your strength and what you stand on, because you stand on that. You understand what I'm saying? And so it is with our brothers and sisters who stand with certain beliefs, our Messianic Hebrew. If I see that you really live in Torah, then I have to respect that. If you living by the commandments, by not eating something unclean, by honoring the Sabbath, but you got the Messianic or you have the Messiah in your teachings, I still respect you, and I have, respect for you, because you live by that, and you walk in that. You get what I'm saying? So if you live by those principles, hey, it is what it is. So I'm not sure if Brother Polight is going to come back on. I know he's taking care of business and he was traveling, so hopefully he comes back on so we could finish out this interview. Maybe this phone call is a little bit longer than the previous ones. So when he gets back on, I'm going to go into ask him a few more questions and then begin to wrap this interview. We've been on for about 2 hours. 2 hours go quick. I just noticed that we've been on for 2 hours, and I know he's with his family, so I don't want to interrupt that. So yes, hopefully he gets back on. If he doesn't, Brother Zion, I don't know if you could reach out to him and see if he's going to get back on. He went to answer a call, so
Yeah,
hopefully.
I just sent him a text message, so see what's going on. I'm sure he's going to return shortly. Again, so far it's been a great interview. I think opportunities like this afford us a glimpse at an individual or individuals who we normally see portrayed in a certain way. I'll use myself as an example. To the comedic community and the comedic platforms, I'm usually portrayed as the biggest and the greatest demon to what they're doing. And the problem with that is that's absolutely not what I am. In a more fair and unbiased setting, people may actually see my real agenda and my real aim. And I think people would appreciate me more. I think our dialogues will go further. But usually, because most of the people that come together on points of contention solely, it's kind of hard not to see someone outside of the realm where you disagree and have hatred for them, because you're accustomed to only seeing them talk about points where we share and have contention. That's why dialogues like this are so important, because we get to come out of our contention just to see where people's minds are at, where people's characters are at, and assess people's actions, and also be able to formulate where people intend to go from their perspective on their aims and agendas in the community. So again, these are some of the reasons why we believe dialogues of this nature is very important. very powerful, and if anything, very enlightening for the community overall. We wanted to say several times, and I believe I even wrote it in the room. I'm asking, me personally, I'm asking for the family to write down any questions that you have, and at the given time, when Chief Uzziel gives the signal, you may chime in and ask Brother Polight specifically some questions you may have. We want to try to wrap the show up in the next hour because the brother does have a destination. He was on a 4 hour journey, and I'm pretty sure he's already been traveling at least 3 of those 4 hours. So we basically in the last hour of that journey. So if you have any questions, we would hope to see that your questions can be answered.
I know this interview right here is a rare one. Brother Zion, you could answer if you can. Has Brother Polight ever been interviewed by an Hebrew without it being a contentious interview at any point?
Never. Brother Polight has never been interviewed in our community without it being contentious and without the aim and agendas of people being contentious. I know that our good brother over at Maccabees TV has never actually interviewed Brother Polight. He'd be one of those people that can actually conduct an unbiased interview, but he hasn't had the opportunity yet to interview Brother Polight. But he's certainly one of those individuals, Maccabees TV, Brother Daniela, who would definitely be able to conduct such an interview. It just so happens that we were able to do it first. But to answer your question, no one has done it yet. So this interview today is powerful in more ways than one because we're almost breaking ground. We're taking an opportunity to say, hey, here's a person that we disagree with. Here's a person that we felt vehemently, and I want to use those words with intention. There's a person, here's a person that vehemently seemed to be attacking our views, but we also want to take a time out to remember that this is still one of our brothers, meaning that we're still talking about family. And in a family setting, even those individuals that we disagree with, we can't entirely give up on. We may have times where we're not talking, we're not together, we not on speaking terms, or as some of us say, I know me and my brother say, it's on sight when I see you.
Right.
Sometimes it gets to that level, but for the most part, we have to remember we are family. Because I think that when we recollect or keep in mind that we're family, then no matter how hard the dialogue get, there's always room for growth because we're always keeping in mind that we're family.
That's right. So I'm not sure if Brother Polight is going to come back on. Maybe he had whatever he's doing is important, but I truly appreciate the time that he gave me. About 2 hours, which is not is not a cakewalk. So hopefully he comes back on. But if not, I really appreciate it. I know he's a busy person, and whatever he has to do, he has to take care of it. I wanted to ask him a few more questions, but it seems like with this one, he has to take care of whatever he has to take care of.
And so far, he relayed some very powerful points. We got to see his origins in the community. We got to see how it's very important, psychologically speaking, understanding how a person goes from infancy to being a toddler to being a child to being a young adult and then to full adult stage. All of those different stages from the point of view of psychology points towards different things cognitively going on in a person's mind that will last in them throughout the duration of their entire life. The things that impact you during your childhood, they have a lasting bearing on your entire span of your life. So it's important to know the genesis of a person's early childhood because then you begin to understand and unravel their interactions in the community, their actions in the community, and some of their thoughts on some very important issues. What the brother said about the first time he met his mother was age 17 and she died a week later, that speaks volumes. It
Right.
also speaks volumes that um, to come from a community where black men are not in the home, for the first 8 years in his life, he had his father in his home, and his father was a major pillar. But he says in his own words that as much of a pillar as his father was, his grandmother, who was his father's mother, was the pillar of the home, which is important because some people feel like having a man in the home, that's the pillar, period. Doesn't matter the age range, which is not true. That's not the African way. That's not African spirituality. The elder in the home is the elder in the home. That's first and foremost. So we may have a man who's considered the man in the home, but if there's a grandmother in the home or a grandfather in the home, they come even before that parent, and we must understand that that within itself is the genesis of African spirituality. And to find that his father respected that speaks volumes to the level that he's in. Because as much as we criticize the brother could have been out here just running with gangs. The brother could have been out here just shooting people. The brother could have been doing every and anything but trying to the best of his ability to use knowledge to empower people. Now we do critique some of his methods. We do critique some of the backlash that he gets, which is rightfully so. We have that right to do so, but we cannot forget the fact that the brother is using to the best of his ability that which he was gifted with from those he embraced and interacted on in early childhood to use to try to affect and empower his people. Now, while we may critique, we must always remember that brother could be doing anything but trying to sell books. He could be out here trying to push drugs or guns, and he's not. So while we're judging and while we're critiquing, we still need to see the entire picture.
Thank you, brother Zion Lex. So I think I'm going to wrap it up here. I think that whatever it is that brother Polight has is probably some pressing business. I appreciate the time that he's given me, and I you know I'm grateful. Hopefully, I could do this with more and more people in the community, in the conscious community, whether they be Hebrews or they be Kemetic teachers. Maybe I could get Jabari here next. You think you could set that up, Zion? Maybe I could get Jabari next.
That's not a problem at all. In fact, Brother Jabari is more than willing to give us an in-person interview, which I know for a fact even Brother Polight is willing to give us. He's willing to give us an in-person interview the next time he's in New York City. Remember, he's a native to New York City, and he definitely comes to New York City. I seen someone ask in the comment section, do you take any calls? You want to address that?
No, not right now because he's not on. So I don't feel like taking calls right now. And I kind of came straight from work, sat down, set up the link, and I haven't had anything to eat. I haven't had my dinner, so and right now I'm famished. So I think we
Okay.
probably end it right here. And I think that the information that we got from the beginning, just share it. I hope that he will share it because I think is I don't I don't I don't think I've ever heard him speak in depth about his life on any other platform. So I think this would be something interesting.
We'll be joining for the family. We'll be joining his live stream tomorrow. So in continuation of this particular dialogue and watching it mature into other areas, you could actually tune in to Brother Polight's YouTube channel where we're absolutely gonna continue this dialogue, and we'll actually be the ones being viewed and interviewed on his channel. Me in particular, but I'm also inviting our brother Chief Uzziel to join the panel with me.
I'll be there. Also, don't forget the super chat, the sign at the bottom. This channel doesn't get as many views as the I Am Polight channel or the Zion Lex channel or the Sarnetta TV, but I think this is a very powerful interview, and you might want to share it to make people see and understand that where this channel is trying to go to, and what I'm trying to do, what I'm achieving to do, and hopefully you could get it, and we could all grow together. So with that, I give glory to the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. I thank him for this day, and I thank my brother Zion Lex. Go ahead, Zion.
All right, so I want to close it out. I want to send respect to Brother Sarnetta, who just called my phone and semi cursed me out for not answering for the last 2 hours because I'm on this live stream. Brother Polight gives a shout out to Uzziel Lewi and those who are on this platform. And I want to say, in closing, man, family, I'm not sure what everyone's particular views of Polight are, but I want to make something extremely clear. I don't think anyone in the community has ever attacked the views and even the person of Brother Polight more directly than I. And I think many people can vouch for that. You could type in Zion Lex versus Polight, and you'll see several videos where we are collectively and literally going at each other's neck. So this interview is definitely not to appease anybody or to pacify anybody. This interview is a genuine interview because we've been through so much and we realize the strength and gifts of one another. And we realize that when we go against one another in arenas where white people are looking on, while we may have legit reasons for attacking one another, white people are watching with a bag of popcorn in their hand, if you catch my drift. White people are entertained when black people are fighting one another. And we can't allow that circus show to continue to go on. We have to figure out a better solution. So if we're going to critique one another, we have to be more tactful. And we have to keep in mind that they are always watching. And not only are they entertained by the grievances that we have with one another, be it verbal or even physical, but they also, again, gain yardage every time we are disagreeing and fighting because we're doing the job of white supremacy for them. So while some people may be upset that, as they say in their own words, we're giving Brother Polight a platform, while I respect your opinion, this is actually bigger than your opinion. Respectfully, I say that. Peace.
Shalom Aleichem to everyone. Peace and blessings, and may the Most High God be with you all. Shalom, shalom.